My girlfriend and I have been dating for years, but we never got married. It's because she's totally against marriage. That was until one day when I got home. I received a call from a bridal shop. Linda, the wedding dress you liked has been altered. When would you like to pick it up? Congratulations on your marriage to Jason. I was stunned. Couldn't believe what I heard. Jason is Linda's childhood friend. The next second, my phone buzzed with a message from Linda. Jason had a fight with his parents, and he'll be staying at our place for a while. At that moment, I realized she wasn't against getting married, just against marrying me. So I decided we should break up. But then, she regretted it. When Linda came back, I was on the couch smoking. The lingering nicotine smell made her frown immediately. She is sensitive to smoke, so I rarely smoke in front of her. Why is the place such a mess? Have you not done any chores for a while, Mark? You're so lazy now, she complained as soon as she took off her shoes. She prides herself on being a modern woman and looks down on housework. I suggested we hire a maid, but she didn't want strangers touching her stuff, so I gave up on that idea. But chores don't just disappear. I had to handle them. I did it willingly because I loved her. Even coming home sore from work, I never complained. But now, with the phone call fresh in my mind, it felt like a huge weight was crushing my chest. I stubbed out the cigarette and said coldly, "I'll hire someone to clean up." My tone might have been too harsh. Linda sat beside me, reaching to touch my shoulder, but I avoided her. She looked upset for a moment but quickly switched back to her usual self. "What's wrong, Mark? Not feeling good? Was the project discussion tough today?" Linda asked with an unusual gentleness. She's not usually this soft-spoken. If it were before, I would have jumped with joy hearing her this gentle. But now it seemed ridiculous. Staying with someone you don't love must be tough for her. Indeed. I didn't say anything, and Linda thought I was agreeing with her. She sighed softly, "Well, Mark, if the deal doesn't work out, let it be. We don't need this one company." She's right. As our company grows, more businesses want to partner with us. Losing one isn't a big deal. But this deal was guaranteed until the client casually asked when Linda and I were getting married. Linda lost her cool, stormed out, and the deal fell through. I wasn't mad at her, even thought of comforting her once we got home. But then Linda gave me a big surprise. "From now on, you don't have to attend any company events or business dealings." Linda looked at me in disbelief. "What do you mean, Mark? This is my company. Are you trying to exclude me?" I looked up at her, her eyes wide, almost distorted with emotion. I smirked. "Didn't you complain that business trips are tiring? Now I'm sparing you from them. Shouldn't you be happy?" Linda got even angrier. "Mark, what's wrong with you today? Do you think I'll try to please you? Please me? That's not something I'd expect." I leaned back on the couch, exhaling deeply. "Aren't you getting married? Need me to give you a wedding gift?" Linda froze for a bit, then glanced at the phone. Trying to explain, she said, "You got it wrong, Mark. It's not what you think. Jason's dad is sick. We're just pretending to marry to ease his mind." Just then, there was a knock on the door. "Linda, are you okay?" I looked towards the door, my smile sarcastic. The man in a black shirt, tall and decent-looking, Jason. I wasn't unfamiliar with him. When Linda and I were dating for a year, she was often out. I thought it was just the excitement fading. Who knew she'd act like a puppy around a friend in front of whom she always had her guard up? She claimed it was friendship from growing up together, fooled me like a fool. She only came back to me after Jason left the country. I was stupid back then to believe Linda's words. Jason nodded at me, acting all superior. "Mark, if you mind me staying, I can find somewhere else. I grew up with Linda and wouldn't want you two to argue because of me." "Jason, what are you saying? You just came back to the country? Who do you know besides me? You're staying here." Linda interrupted him, looking at him with concern. But when her eyes returned to me, they were filled with impatience and disdain. "Mark, whatever game you're playing, I don't care. If you want to break up, go ahead. I'd like to see where you'd go without me." Linda smirked, extremely confident, knowing her company's success meant one word from her could wreck my career. She's using my future and career to threaten me. I let out a laugh fueled by anger. staring hard at the woman I've loved for so many years, not wanting to miss any expression on her face. What now? Planning to consummate the marriage right in front of me. Linda, you're loaded. Can't you buy your little lover another house? I've been with Linda for 10 years, and now I'm 28. In a decade, I've never spoken to her so harshly. But so what? Over the past couple of years, my parents have been pressing me more and more to get married. I couldn't dare say Linda's not into marriage, so I had to bear all the pressure myself. To me, marriage is just an accessory. The important thing is that Linda and I liked each other. Who would have thought that while I was trying so hard to make our relationship work, Linda was already trying on wedding dresses with someone else? How ridiculous. Linda heard my words, raised her hand to slap me. Mark, who are you insulting? I couldn't tell if she was mad because we were fighting or because I insulted Jason. I caught Linda's wrist, stood over her. What? Did I say something wrong? Linda's face flushed as she tried to pull her hand away but failed. That was until Jason stepped up, looking anxious. Mark, this is my fault. It has nothing to do with Linda. We didn't think it through before telling you. I'm really sorry. Jason sounded so sincere. It made me look like the one causing trouble. While I was caught up in my thoughts, Jason suddenly bowed to me, whispering so only we could hear, "It's just a wedding now, who knows later." Mark, the marriage you've begged for a decade but didn't get, I just had to talk a little and here it is. Who do you think you are? Jason glanced at me with a blatant look of mocking in his eyes. I grabbed his collar and demanded, "What did you say?" But Jason immediately changed his expression to a look of innocence. Mark, what are you doing? Have you lost it? Let go of me. Linda came over, gave me a slap without hesitating. My cheek stung, and for a moment I was just frozen there. Jason, are you okay? I'm fine. It's all my fault making you two fight. On the side, Linda held Jason's hand, eyes full of worry. I hadn't even done anything, yet in Linda's eyes, Jason seemed so fragile. While she blamed me for everything, Jason stood there like he couldn't make a wrong move. Mark, I'm telling you, if anything happens to Jason, you just wait. Linda threatened, ignoring the slap mark on my face. I sneered. I only grabbed his collar, didn't stab him. Is it that serious? If you really stabbed him, I'd make you suffer. Linda's voice was harsh, not like she was joking. Before I could respond, she pulled Jason and left without looking back. I stood there alone, watching them leave, thinking for a long time. A really long time until my legs felt numb. Only then did I wipe my face. Why is this place leaking anyway? Linda didn't come back all night, and I packed my things. This house was bought 3 years ago. When Linda moved us in, she was as happy as a butterfly, flying around until finally landing in my arms. I remember she hugged me, acting cute. Back then, she said, from that day on, this would be our home. She also mentioned adopting a cat, a dog eventually, and they'd be our kids. But in the end, it is indeed a home, just not mine and hers. For 3 years, I barely have any stuff here. I've dedicated myself to work, hoping Linda would succeed, leaving me no time to rest, let alone organize my life. Even my clothes are outdated. During business meetings, the bosses joked I looked like an employee, not the VP of a company. My suits were from years ago, my car wasn't anything special. I always laughed it off, saying I didn't care, but deep down I felt a bit wronged, hoping Linda would surprise me with a gift. But after a decade in love, gifts from her were rare. As I closed the door, I got a friend request from Jason. I didn't know what he wanted but accepted it anyway. Jason sent me a photo. In it, he stood in front of a full-length mirror, wearing a brand new suit, a watch on his wrist. The suit and watch were gifts from Mark, over $3 million. I heard it came from a contract you recently signed. Thanks, buddy. Jason seemed so pleased with himself, and there was a lot of malice towards me. But I just didn't get why. Jason and I didn't know each other at all, and today was our first time meeting. If he liked Linda, being her childhood friend, he could have easily had an advantage. There was no need to mock me. I thought it over and decided to reply. Oh, didn't like her before. Now he's all over her? Jason replied quickly, like he was glued to his phone waiting for me. What do you know? You should be thankful to me for being with Mark for 10 years. I was confused until Jason sent another message. Turns out, right after our college entrance exams, Linda confessed to Jason. But Jason's family is into business and wealthy, so he wasn't interested in Linda. He was also going abroad for studies, so he promised Linda that if she became successful in 10 years, he would come back and marry her. So Linda came up with a great plan. Find someone to help her succeed. And top of the class me became the perfect fool for the job. That day, I sat by my window with my phone for a long time, unable to figure out how the past 10 years turned into a mess. No matter how things ended with Linda, I still had my job to attend to. After all, I built this company from the ground up. It's my heart and soul. But I didn't expect to find Jason already in my office when I arrived. I frowned and demanded, "What are you doing here?" Jason leaned back in the chair, smiling as he explained, "Didn't Mark tell you, from today, I'm the new vice president of the company. As for you, you can take a hike." I almost laughed from how mad he made me. This company, founded when I was 23, consumed all my time and energy to get to where it is today. I knew every employee and all the company's partnerships by heart. And now, he thinks a simple take a hike could make me leave? I strode forward and yanked Jason out of his chair. "Jason, I don't care what's going on between you and Linda or what you're after, but this company was built by me. Who do you think you are to be here? Who the hell do you think you are? I'm the boss of this company." Linda's voice came from the doorway. I turned my head and she had an angry look on her face, while some employees looked on curiously. Jason shook off my hand and walked over to Linda. "Mark, he seems to have a problem with your decision. I don't mind really, but you're the boss, right? Everyone should listen to you." Linda's face grew darker. She slightly lifted her chin and commanded me, "Mark, you're fired." Broken-hearted. Linda lacked business sense, and the company's success was all thanks to me. I thought she knew her limits, but turns out, she's blindly overconfident. "Don't regret this. You'll be the one to regret, Mark. Let's see who would want you without me." Ignoring her threats, I walked out without looking back. By the company entrance, I pulled out my phone and dialed a number without hesitation. "Is your offer still good?" "Soon." A woman's laughter came from the other end. "Course it's good. What, finally leaving that useless girlfriend of yours?" I didn't respond, just asked, "Terms?" "It's been a few years, so I'm not sure if your skills are still sharp. We'll start with the salary and position as discussed. As for other benefits, once you bring in results, I'll definitely compensate you fairly." "Okay, then Before I could finish, a Rolls-Royce pulled up in front of me. The passenger window rolled down slowly, and I saw Molly's undeniably beautiful face. "Still standing there? Aren't you getting in?" Molly smiled as she took off her sunglasses. After a brief hesitation, I decided to get in. I met Molly 3 years ago. Back when Linda and I just started our company, Molly was already a successful businesswoman in everyone's eyes. We met purely by chance. At the entrance of a banquet hall, I was anxiously waiting for a certain boss with a proposal in hand. It was pouring rain, and the moment the boss came out, I approached with an umbrella. Ignoring his surprise, I introduced myself and the company calmly, then handed him a hangover tea I'd brought. "I heard you have stomach issues, and I bet you drank quite a bit. Why not have this hangover tea while we talk? It won't take much of your time." My confident response and thorough preparation impressed him, and I landed the first big deal for our company. That's when Molly noticed me. Later, she offered me a job with a 6-figure salary. Like she said, having such courage and dedication as a newbie is rare. But back then, I turned her down. My heart was all for Linda. Molly didn't insist. She just left her number. Told me to call her anytime if I changed my mind. I ended up saving her number, and who knew I'd really need it someday. To be honest, I was surprised you called. I thought you'd spend your life besotted with your little girlfriend. Molly teased like we weren't just meeting for the second time but were old friends catching up. I didn't say anything, just gave a bitter smile. Thinking back, Linda and I got together right after our college entrance exams. I was honestly shocked back then when she confessed to me. I barely interacted with Linda in my memory. But Linda said she had noticed me for a long time. She liked how focused and serious I was when reading, and she appreciated my diligence in everything I did. Getting a confession from a girl I didn't know well was odd, so I didn't agree to it right away. But Linda spent a month convincing me she truly liked me. Every day she sent messages and often appeared at my workplace. She even waited outside with breakfast while I practiced driving early each morning. Day after day, without exception. I'd never been cared for so thoughtfully before, and soon I developed feelings for her. Being together just felt natural. Not even 4 years of long distance could change my mind. I thought Linda and I would be together forever, but I didn't expect even our beginning to be so calculated. Fast forward to the present, Molly is a pleasant person to be around. She handed me files from the back seat when she dropped me downstairs. Here's company info and some ongoing projects. Think you can digest it all overnight? I quickly collected myself, taking the files. No problem. Great, join me tomorrow to meet a client then. Sure thing. Thanks to Molly's files, I had no extra energy to think about Linda. The next day was spent shadowing Molly, learning a ton from her. Molly was charismatic, flawless in conversation and action, effortlessly securing deals while keeping the atmosphere light. It was impressive. I realized there was still a lot to learn. For a while, I stuck closely to Molly, learning each night from different files, leaving thoughts of Linda far behind. So when she called, I didn't immediately recognize the number. An ex-girlfriend calling? I nodded to Molly as I picked up. She glanced at her watch. You have 3 minutes to handle it. Got it, boss. I walked into a secluded corner, answering with Linda's haughty voice immediately greeting me. How's life treating you now, Mark? Tough, isn't it? Come back to me and I can act like nothing happened. I was speechless, wondering about Linda's confidence. Maybe I'd made her feel too important before. Once again I said, Linda, we're over. Please stop bothering me. I thought my tone was calm, not threatening. But she suddenly became furious, laughing and saying fine 3 times in a row. Mark, you think you're tough now. I'll wait for you to crawl back to me. She hung up and I blocked her number. Returning to Molly, exactly 3 minutes had passed. She nodded in approval. Let's go, Mike is waiting. Following Molly into the office, I noticed her familiarity with Mike. Chatting about elite matters, I tuned out. Yet a familiar name caught my ear. You heard about a recent bankruptcy, right? It hit many, including that family Jason was almost going to marry into. But with the bankruptcy, it seems the wedding is off. They must owe a lot. I missed some words but clearly heard Jason's name. On the way back, I couldn't shake off the conversation. Molly, still reading files, asked without looking up, what's on your mind? You've been spaced out. I hesitated but eventually shared about Jason and Linda. Molly raised an eyebrow, chuckling. So, Jason's with your ex now? I nodded. Interesting. With debts piling up, they could be desperate. Your ex's company seems doomed. I wouldn't mind you lending a hand. Best strategy, though, would be to let them battle it out, then buy it cheap. After all, it was your company in the first place. She returned to her files, but her words got me thinking. Someone remembered my contributions to Linda's company. Taking Molly's advice to heart, I began closely monitoring Linda's company. Sure enough, after I left, no new deals were made, and Jason burnt through a lot of money. His social media flaunted luxury watches, cars, even real estate. I recalled how unwilling Linda seemed when I needed money before. Back then, to convince myself, I even looked up Linda's zodiac sign, telling myself that this sign just doesn't like to spend money. Looking back now, it's all just laughably absurd. Quite a few colleagues from the company came to vent to me. They said that Jason, the VP, was doing nothing all day long and just going on dates with Linda. All the work landed on them. A lot of people have already left. Hearing this, I told them to hang tight since it seemed like Linda's good days were almost over. I saw Linda again at a bid meeting. Molly had me scout the place first while she had dinner with a big client. But guess who else showed up? Yep, Linda and Jason walked in too. The minute she saw me, Linda headed straight over and stopped me in my tracks. Oh, isn't this Mark? What, left me and now you're a waiter? Her voice was dripping with disdain, and she looked at me like I was some insect. Funny thing is, the look people gave her was more like they thought she was an idiot. I've been around with Molly enough to meet a lot of bosses lately. It's clear to anyone who's not blind that Molly's taking me under her wing. Meanwhile, Linda has been off on dates with Jason, ignoring the company altogether. I chuckled and threw back at her. What? They just let any old nobody in here now? Jason, with his arm around Linda, chimed in sarcastically. Cut it out, Mark. Maybe Mark's mad at us. It was our fault, to be fair. If life's tough, tell Molly. Given the decade you spent together, she won't leave you hanging. Linda laughed cockily. Yeah, Mark, didn't I say? Kneel for me and I'll pretend past stuff didn't happen. Glancing at the time, with the bid starting soon and Molly probably on her way, I had no time for their drama. Stone-faced, I moved to pass by them. But Linda wasn't done with her spectacle. She grabbed my wrist and was about to say something but then saw the watch I was wearing. Where'd you get such an expensive watch? She blurted, eyes wide. I pulled free, annoyed. Not your business. Oh, I see why you've got some backbone now. Hooked yourself a sugar mama. Huh? Mark, you never miss a chance to leech off someone. Linda stood there all smug, trying to morally shame me. I shrugged, unfazed. Talking about leeching, nobody does it better than the guy next to you. Her smile vanished instantly. Mark, how dare you talk about Jason like that? Yet, she attempted to slap me again, but this time, I caught her wrist firmly. Her face went pale. Linda, you got some messed up habit of hitting people or what? I let go, and she stumbled, almost falling to the floor. Mark, turning, I saw Molly walking over in her heels. Witchmutt's barking, not knowing it shouldn't get cocky. She said, joining me. Standing next to me, Molly looked at Linda and laughed. Ah, did so many bad deals that you can't even stand straight now? Linda's face went pale with embarrassment. But with Molly's status, she could only muster up a forced smile. You're joking. I really need to learn from you on running a company. About that proposal to your company. Molly didn't even acknowledge Linda, just looked at me and said, what are you standing here for? The bid's starting. And she added, didn't I tell you to steer clear of strays? You never know if they're vaccinated. If you get bitten, who's covering while you're off? Trying not to laugh, I left with Molly. From the corner of my eye, I saw Linda seething in disbelief. Once Molly was there, she was the center of attention, taking me up with her by default. In the corner, Linda looked furious, like she'd explode if she could. I just raised my glass and nodded at her. Molly ended up winning the bid, as expected. Linda left in disgrace halfway through. I thought that was the last I'd hear from Linda, but then she invited me to her wedding. Molly laughed, fiddling with the invite. Maybe she thinks since she can't outdo you at work, she'll try to one-up you in love? Molly said. I shrugged, just as clueless. So, you going? She asked. Yeah. Molly squinted dangerously. Before she could snap, I explained. Jason's been selling off stuff. I think he's preparing to run. The employees told me, too, that he's been frequenting the finance office. So you think Linda's finally going broke? I gave her a knowing wink. She laughed and casually tossed the invitation back to me. All right, you're cleared. Much obliged, Your Highness. On Linda's wedding day, a bunch of people showed up, and the venue was decked out to the nines. She even invited a lot of media, probably hoping that this wedding could squash the rumors about her going broke. Too bad, it might just confirm those rumors. Linda walked toward me in her wedding dress. There was a time when I imagined countless times her wearing a dress, marrying me. I thought when I stood on that stage, I would tell everyone how we supported each other, trusted each other these past 10 years, and made it to this day. I'd tell everyone how much I love her. Then I'd solemnly put the ring on her finger. But thankfully, none of that happened. Thank goodness I found out who she really was before getting married. How does it feel, Mark? Is this what you imagined? Too bad the groom isn't you. Linda stared at me intensely, as if trying to see pain or sadness in my face. Too bad. There's no ripple in my heart. Oh, so what? Maybe my indifferent attitude made her mad. Linda gritted her teeth and said harshly, Why are you pretending, Mark? Who doesn't know your biggest dream in life is to marry me? Now that I'm really getting married, you must be heartbroken, right? Before Linda could finish, a woman in a bridesmaid dress ran over to her, whispered something in her ear, and suddenly, Linda's face changed. What did you say? Impossible. If they're gone, just find them. Linda lowered her voice, but I still heard everything crystal clear. She gave me one last glare and hurried off, holding up her dress. I found my seat and sat down, ready to watch the show. Everyone was seated, the media set up their cameras, but Linda and Jason were nowhere to be seen. Whispers spread through the venue. What's going on? Where are the bride and groom? Yeah, it's so late and they're still not here. Could it be they're not coming? I chuckled, slowly setting up my phone. Molly asked me to record the iconic scene and send it to her, or she'd dock my pay. After who knows how long, Linda finally showed up. But she looked really upset. She stood on stage alone, her voice trembling. I'm sorry, everyone. There was a little accident. The wedding might have to be postponed. Before Linda could finish, the doors burst open. The police marched in, surprising everyone, and headed straight for her. Where's Jason? He's suspected of a business fraud and we need him to come with us. What followed was sheer chaos. Basically, the day before the wedding, Jason tricked Linda into signing over her company shares, making him the biggest shareholder. Then, on the wedding day, he openly ditched her, selling her company at a low price. Now, Linda's lost everything, including her groom and her company. As Linda's ex-boyfriend, I also went in for questioning. Police told me Jason is still at large. Walking out of the station, I saw Linda sitting at the entrance. She was still in her wedding dress, but her eyes were empty, with none of her earlier pride. Hearing footsteps, Linda looked up, and her eyes lit up when she saw me. Mark, calling my name, she grabbed my shirt. I had to stop. I'm sorry, I was fooled by Jason before. I wasn't sincere, believe me. We've been together for 10 years. Can such a long relationship just disappear like that? Mark, I'm willing to marry you. She went on, but I didn't want to listen anymore, so I yanked my shirt free. Linda, everyone has to pay for their actions. Jason does, and so do you. She opened her mouth to say something, but a Range Rover not far away honked. The window rolled down, and Molly nodded at me. Mark, if you don't get in, are you going to walk back? I smiled and said to Linda helplessly, sorry, my boss is here to pick me up. Molly secretly bought the company behind my back. She said I should never just be an employee and that the money she used to buy the company was a loan. She believed she'd get it back with interest soon enough. I returned to the company, except this time it was truly mine. I had to clean up the mess Linda left, and I kept so busy like a top spinning, even dragging other employees into overtime with me. But they claimed they'd rather work themselves to death than go back to the old days. With the police's relentless efforts, Jason was finally caught. Rumor has it that when he was arrested, he was out shopping with a rich lady. As for Linda, she never gave up trying to win me back, lingering around the company every day. Until one day, while being chased off by security, she was hit by a truck. She broke her leg and now has to spend the rest of her life in a wheelchair. She hoped I'd visit her, but all I could say was, too busy with work. 6 months later, I finally paid off the debt. Living debt-free is so nice that I even got up the nerve to ask Molly if she'd like to be my girlfriend. Molly, need a good housewife? How about me? She smiled, poking my chest. If you try hard enough, maybe. No rush, I have patience, at least 10 years. And this time, I believe it won't take 10 years.